You're watching DD The Defense Dynamics. I'm Danveer from New Delhi, connecting to our viewers from India and around the world. In the next half an hour or so of this episode of Defense Dynamics, we get to you some fascinating visuals of the Indian Air Force celebrations from Chennai. We'll tell you all you want to know about seven-front war of Israel. We'll also tell you what could be the implications upon India of this Israel-Iran conflict. We'll also explain the Israeli air defense and the famous Iron Dome system. We'll also tell you how the United States forces are poised in this region to support Israel alongside other facts, details and analysis of defense-related news this week. A spectacular air display showcasing the prowess and maneuverability of the Indian Air Force aircrafts over the iconic Marina skies captivated the hearts of Chennaites, who had turned up in thousands on a sultry Sunday of October 6th of 2024. They witnessed IAF's range of new aircrafts, including Rafale, roar in action. Nearly 72 aircrafts took part in that aerial display, which was a record by itself. Some fascinating visuals that have been released by the Ministry of Defense of India showcasing the air power and India's might in the skies. Take a look.
Nearly 72 aircrafts took part in the aerial display over the skies of Chennai to mark 92nd anniversary on the 6th of October of 2024. About 50 aircrafts, including the supersonic jet Rafale, indulged in a formation showering flares. The heritage aircrafts like Dakota and Harvard flew along with the state-of-art aircrafts like the Tejas, Su-30 and the helicopters Sarang. The Sukhoi Su-30 fighter jets performed the loop-tumble-yaw maneuver and dispensed flares.
The pilot is now carrying out a 9G turn and positioning for its next maneuver, the loop-tumble-yaw. As she flies past at just 200 km per hour and shall be dispensing flares. Notice the high angle of attack, as they say, even the winds stop to stare.
The Surya Kirans too took to the skies to enthrall the crowds. Nation's pride and our own indigenously manufactured state-of-art light combat aircraft Tejas and light combat helicopter Prachand too took part in the flypast and aerial display held in Chennai after a gap of 21 years with the theme Saksham, Sashakta, Atmanirbhar. It is the third time such one took place outside the national capital. The grand finale was a breathtaking performance by the Sarang helicopter display team that performed a stunning aerial maneuvers. Streaking across the sky and demonstrating refueling capability, and the Dakotas in action was a sight to behold.
India's Tejas, the light combat aircraft, stole the show. The Tejas flew in Kartikeya formation over the skies of Chennai. Not only did they enthrall the public in Chennai, but it's a rage over the internet as well. What began as localized conflict between Israel and Hamas has evolved into a multi-front war with Israel, now facing challenges across the whole of West Asia. The war has drawn in key regional players including Iran, which has recently escalated tensions by launching ballistic missile strike on the Israeli targets. This has widened the scope of the conflict, with Israel now engaged on 7 different fronts.
If Israel decides to respond, it has to keep in mind that there is also simultaneously a war going on in Hamas against Hamas in Gaza. There is now a front which has opened up in Lebanon. There is some kind of strikes which are taking place in Syria. It's also happening against the Houthis in Yemen. And Mr. Netanyahu himself has said that Israel is fighting on 7 fronts.
Israel is facing a 7-front war. So let's try and break down and see it on the map, that how these 7 fronts look like on the map. We have Israel in the center with this yellow dot marked, and right on top we have Hamas that was operating from Gaza. Then we have terrorists in the West Bank, to the east of Israel, east and north, and right in the north in Lebanon where war is going on are the Hezbollah fighters. They are attacking Israel. Then we have Houthis in Yemen down south. Then we also have Shiite militias in Iraq as well as in Syria. And finally, the mother of all is Iran. So this is how the 7 fronts form. After the Iranian strike with nearly 200 ballistic missiles on 1st of October of 2024, Israel now says that it will retaliate. Iran on its part has warned that any Israeli attack against Iran would be met with an unconventional response that includes targeting of Israeli infrastructure.
In my opinion, the way that I have been noticing it, of course, there will be an escalation because Israel's strategy is not really to eradicate Iran. I don't think that is a part of Israel's official strategy in any way. Although, on the contrary, it has always been an official strategy, like an official state aim by Iran, and especially after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, that to eradicate Israel is basically a state aim. Now, we don't really see that in Israel, and that doesn't make any sense either.
The West Asia has really become a dangerous place. In fact, could well be the most dangerous week of this war. Rebuffing US President Joe Biden's recent request for a proportionate response, the former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said that Israel must attack Iran's nuclear program and cripple the regime's main economic interests. All of these would be only a fraction of what Iran did to Israel. Bennett wrote in a post on X, "If we don't take out the nuclear program now, I don't know we'll ever do it." The Mullah regime has acquired SQ-10, which means enough high-grade uranium to produce 10 nuclear bombs. The regime is racing towards producing detonator device itself, while the world can no longer really track this. In other words, we might wake up to a test bomb exploding in the Iran deserts. At the moment, the Middle East will become a nuclear nightmare, he added. So, what are the options available with two sides? What are the options available with Israel and Iran? So, first we'll talk about the options available with Iran. Iran has got multiple options. One stated option that they have already said is that they will have an unconventional response and include targeting Israeli infrastructure. That goes to say that they can also target the Israeli nuclear sites. They can also attack Israeli embassies and the Jewish centers around the globe. Thereafter, they can also target the Israeli air bases and military installations. They have also targeted them in the previous strikes. And finally, they can also seek support from the Gulf countries, which ironically for Iranians, they are playing neutral so far. So what are the options available with Israel? Israel can target Iranian military installation. Needless to say, they will be targeted. But what is the cause of greater worry to the world is that they can carry out attack on nuclear installations of Iran.
At this time, Israel may decide not to open up or not to respond to Iran at all. But if it does, in any kind of way, one of the major options for Israel is to target the nuclear facilities. But then that would be tantamount to almost a full-scale war, with the United States perhaps also entering into it. So it's unlikely.
The United States maintains a considerable military presence in the Middle East, with forces in more than a dozen countries and on ships throughout the region's waters. That presence has expanded in 2024 as United States focuses on deterring and defeating threats emanating from Iran and its network of armed affiliates. That includes Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and several Iraq and Syria-based militant groups.
Since the October 2023 outbreak of war between Hamas and Israel, a US ally and a defense partner, US forces in the Middle East have been increasingly targeted by some of these groups and have regularly responded with counter-strikes. Meanwhile, US and coalition ships have been protecting merchant shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, defending against nearly daily Houthi drone and missile attacks. The Pentagon has also responded as hostilities between Israel and Iran and Israel and Hezbollah have flared up in the recent months. In April, US warplanes and ships successfully intercepted drones and missiles fired at Israel in an unprecedented direct attack by Iran. In early October, the United States announced it was sending dozens more aircraft to the region as Israel commenced a ground incursion against Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran launched another large barrage of missile strike against Israel. US naval forces reportedly shot a dozen interceptors at the Iranian missiles. The US troop level in any given region can fluctuate greatly depending on the particular security environment, national defense priorities, and various other considerations. As of October 2024, US has some 40,000 service members in the Middle East, many on ship at sea in the region. In total, United States has military facilities across at least 19 sites, 8 of them considered to be permanent by many regional analysts in countries including Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. The US military also uses large bases in Djibouti and Turkey, which are part of other regional commands but often contribute significantly to US operations in the Middle East.
Now let's check out where exactly the United States military presence is located in the Middle East. So as on the map, we can see firstly the yellow colored portions where the threat from Iranian-backed militia exists, that is Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon and West Bank. Thereafter, now let's talk about the locations where United States military presence is there. Now in the green shade, we can see on the wall, United States military bases are there. Most importantly, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. These are the places which are very important as far as this conflict is concerned. Now, where are the naval assets that United States has placed in this region? Now we have these blue colored blobs which are basically indicating the locations of the carrier groups. So we have Abraham Lincoln carrier group. This is going to play a very major role in case the Israel-Iran war flares up into a larger dimension. What will be the Israeli response and how will Iran react is anybody's guess. However, if the worst nightmare gets true, then how will that impact upon India and this region?
In the short term, a war will create panic, and that will affect supply chains. Oil prices in particular will go up because of panic, and people will obviously be worried about the future. Hence, these are the kind of sensitive commodities that will be going up rapidly. That will affect the entire supply chain of other markets because transport costs will go up. And once the supply chains of other markets are affected, then the bottom lines of companies start getting affected, and obviously companies start losing profits.
The conflict between Israel and Iran has entered a volatile phase, raising concerns across various sectors, particularly trade and economics. As tensions escalate, the implications for India, an emerging player in global market, are becoming increasingly significant. The conflict has heightened the risk of disruptions along key shipping routes crucial for India's trade with Europe, the United States, Africa and the West Asia. The Red Sea and Suez Canal routes are particularly vital as they facilitate movement of goods worth over $400 billion annually. The instability threatens not just shipping lanes but overall security of maritime trade. The escalation of conflict has already begun to affect Indian exports. For instance, exports fell by 9% in August 2024, primarily due to substantial 38% decline in petroleum products caused by the Red Sea crisis. These exports accounted for significant portion of India's trade with Europe, receiving 21% of total petroleum products. As the shipping routes become longer due to conflict-related diversions, the costs have increased by 15 to 20%. India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor was announced during India's G20 presidency to create an efficient trade route connecting India, the Gulf and Europe, which aims to reduce dependency on Suez Canal while also countering China's Belt Road Initiative. However, the ongoing conflict threatens the progress and viability of this corridor, impacting bilateral trade between India and its partners as well as regional economic dynamics. The ongoing conflict has led to a spike in global crude oil prices. As Iran is a major oil producer, any military escalation could disrupt oil supplies, further pushing the prices upwards.
We can see that the stock markets in the short term will also have a bad impact. They will start falling because of panic initially, and also because the companies are not making profits, they will continue to fall for a reasonable period of time. But to hedge all this, people will move their money from stock markets into more stable commodities like gold.
In the military circles, it is usually the offensive weaponry that gets the adrenal going. But these days, there is a defensive system that has captured the military geeks and indeed the world's attention. The ongoing crisis in West Asia has piqued the curiosity around the Israeli air defense system, the Iron Dome. It has been successfully thwarting enemy rockets, missiles, drones and other projectiles ever since this latest crisis started almost a year ago on October 7th of 2023.
Israel has a three-tier air defense system. The first layer, Aero Missile System, forms the outermost envelope meant to destroy the incoming enemy missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere. The second, a 300-kilometer envelope within the atmosphere, is created by David's Sling. The innermost envelope is formed by the Iron Dome with its Tamir interceptor missiles. In a world where the threat from the air is from missiles, drones and other projectiles, having a similarly comprehensive air defense system is critical. Israel's ally, the United States of America, too has developed its own terminal high-altitude area defense system called the THAAD to cover short and intermediate missile threats. India, which is emerging as one of the top military powers in Asia, and there is a detailed conversation on India having a similarly complex air defense shield, more so given the nature of its neighborhood.
India is firstly, it is 300 times the size of Israel. It has much larger urban centers and strategic installations. And also the threat faced is very classical and very traditional from established military forces like Pakistan and China, who have very advanced missile systems including ballistic missiles as well as cruise missiles. So it's not a kind of a one-size-fits-all approach which can be employed here.
Air Marshal A.P. Singh echoed this sentiment recently while answering to a question about India's air defense at a press conference, where he stated that with the systems we have already procured and with the systems that are in the pipeline, as a combination of the two, we will have fairly competent air defense systems. Right off the bat, Indian requirements are clearly different from those of Israel. A simplistic comparison between India and Israel will be a gross mistake. India has two major nuclear powers adversaries, which Israel does not have. India has a vast area to defend, while Israel does not have. Israel is a small country with an area of roughly 22,000 square kilometers, while India's area is 300 times more than that of Israel, and its population is 140 times more than that of Israel. India's air defense requirements and the quantum of protection would be much larger and significantly more diverse. India would not only require the entirety of the country to be protected with anti-missile defense systems, but would also need to prioritize the vulnerable areas and cities.
That philosophy is of a layered and tiered air defense system, wherein there are 3 to 4 layers catering for the very short range, medium range and long range. So per se, as if you talk about the philosophy, India can very much deploy this same philosophy of a tiered air defense.
Till a decade back, India's entire air defense system was reliant on old obsolete systems like L-70s, Zu-23mm twins, Shilka, S-125M Pichora, surface-to-air missiles SAM-8, OSA-AK, SAM-6 Quadrat, SA-13 Strela 10M and man-portable air defense system like the Iglas. However, the old gun systems and the missile systems are being phased out systematically and are being replaced by more resilient systems. India has been procuring systems like Spider, S-400, Barak and developing Akash and QR SAMs indigenously.
Now, missile launch.
It was on 5th October 2024 when India successfully test-fired the QR SAMs at Pokhran. For exo-atmospheric interceptions, it has Prithvi Air Defense or the PADs. For medium range, that is over 100 kilometers, it has advanced air defense missiles and the newly inducted S-400s. For lower ranges and quick reaction interception, it has now missiles like Barak 8, Akash, Spider and a few old but effective systems integrated with new radars. India has established an overlapping grid of radar systems to cover long, medium and close range threats across altitudes, which is achieved by integrating surveillance radars of the Army, Navy and the Air Force.
And accordingly, the radar coverage is to be planned. This is exactly how it is done in our country. It has been done for ages now. It is done by an agency called the Joint Planning Committee, which is a joint committee wherein the Army, Air Force, Navy and the strategic affairs people sit. And every year this list of vulnerable areas and points is revised, and according to this threat perception, the radar coverage is deployed.
All these radars are connected to the air defense operational controls managed by the Indian Air Force for real-time imaging of air picture. An integrated secure data across the services is a must to fight the modern-day warfare.
The Israel-Iran conflict is rooted in geopolitical, ideological and security tensions. Israel views Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat to itself, while Iran opposes Israel's existence, supporting anti-Israel groups like the Hezbollah.
In my opinion, when Israel is going to retaliate, what it essentially means is that it's going to weaken this axis of proxies, okay, which has been deployed as a major instrument by Iran to actually wield its influence. That's the first part. The other thing is that the other determinant, in my opinion, which is going to determine how far this conflict is going to get escalated, is going to be decided by whether or not we see Israel actually targeting the oil facilities in Iran or the nuclear facilities in Iran.
This conflict exacerbates regional instability, with both nations engaged in proxy wars, cyber attacks and diplomatic hostilities. For India, the stakes are too high. Peace in West Asia is of paramount importance. With this, we come to an end of this episode, but before I go, here is my take. The Israel-Iran conflict presents challenges for India, impacting its strategic, economic and diplomatic interests. India has close ties with both the nations. Israel is a key defense and technology partner, while Iran is vital for energy imports and regional connectivity, particularly through the Chabahar port. The conflict complicates India's balancing act between maintaining its relations with Israel and safeguarding its energy, security and regional interests linked to Iran. It also creates concerns over potential disruptions in oil supplies and regional instability affecting India's energy market and broader geopolitical strategies in the West Asia. See you next week with new stories and their analysis. Thanks for watching and do post your comments on social media with #DD with Anveer. Goodbye and take care.